It is Columbus Day, the anniversary of the day that a man came from Europe and slaughtered and enslaved my ancestors. Of course, this led to the eventual creation of the greatest country in the world, the country that I am proud to live in with my husband and my beautiful children. And I've experienced great success. I mean, I have a TV show, I have a radio show, I have a book coming out this Monday, Hands Off My Gun, Freedom, Technology, Opportunity. So anyway, thanks, Christopher. It's time for Dana. The head of the CDC, Dr. Thomas Frieden, is being criticized today for his assertion that the Dallas nurse Nina Pham is actually the one at fault for contracting the deadly Ebola virus while treating the now deceased Thomas Duncan. Now, in typical bureaucrat fashion, rather than acknowledge the potential that their safeguards aren't foolproof, he instead says that Nurse Pham broke protocol. Listen.
We don't know what occurred in the care of the index patient, the original patient in Dallas. But at some point, there was a breach in protocol, and that breach in protocol resulted in this infection.
Do you know what's missing from that little tidbit there? What protocols were broken? See, nobody seems to be willing to say. It's apparently a super duper secret, you guys. We can't let Ebola know what our protocols are, or they'll defeat us. Interestingly, in spite of the fact that the CDC was doing everything absolutely perfectly, President Obama calls for better protocols, ordering the CDC to investigate what happened, and he wants them to do things and stuff, like Rick Grimes from The Walking Dead. Thanks, Lori and Steph. What a brave and vital role of leadership President Obama is taking, guys. You know, he's stepping up and he's saying that we need to do things, and those things, they need to be the right things. Well done, Mr. President. Now, of course, do we really know if these super secret protocols were broken? Because here's something that should kind of scare the crap out of you. We don't even know if this thing can go airborne. And I don't mean that, you know, we haven't determined or they're working on an answer. No, I mean, it's actually being reported that they haven't even bothered testing or studying the question. So, to recap, the CDC is blaming the spread of Ebola on protocols that they're unwilling to reveal, but President Obama thinks should be improved, while the scientists are playing guessing games with how this thing may or may not mutate. Does it seem like these guys have their crap together? Well, the National Institutes of Health here in the United States, they say that they totally would have had a vaccine, guys. They would have had it by now, only if Republicans hadn't cut their funding. I knew it. The Republicans are always behind everything. I mean, never mind the fact that under George W. Bush, the NIH funding was increased by over 60%, and under President Obama and a Democrat-controlled Senate, it's only dropped by about 0.7%. This is about money. Dollar signs, yeah. If they had more money, none of this would be happening, apparently. Now, the NIH has barely been scraping by with their funding, you guys. So, what programs have taken priority in the last several years, as opposed to the vaccine that they say they totally could have made? Here to discuss some of the priorities of the NIH is our resident fake scientist, Dr. Ben Howe of the Fake Science Institute. Fake scientist Dr. Ben Howe. The NIH says that they simply lacked the funding because of republicanism to actually make the vaccination, the study of vaccines for Ebola, to make it a priority. So what, in fact, what's the NIH spending their money on instead?
Well, a lot of very important things have been going on with the NIH. For instance, there was a study done for, I think there's something supposed to be coming up on screen here.
Well, it's because it has the Ebola.
Yeah.
That was a joke, fake scientist, Dr. Ben. It's okay.
Yeah, this is $295,000 on apparently ants hanging out with one another.
That was something that they spent money on? They spent $295,000 on that?
Yeah, apparently.
Now, you're affiliated with the NIH, from my understanding.
Yes.
So, what is this? This $350,000?
This was seeing whether or not golf could spur the imagination of people $350,000 was spent. I think this paid off because, as you could see with President Obama, he very clearly took that to heart and has been using the results of that study.
Right.
As you can see here, this is apparently done in space for some reason.
Well, it was because, from what I understand, it was supposed to be to study how golfers use their imagination to become better at golf, which does that actually stop Ebola, to spend money studying whether or not...
That's not the question, Dana, and I think that you're distracting from the issue here. The issue is that we needed to make sure that there was an imagination being used by golfers, and obviously there wasn't until they did this study.
What else do we, because we have a huge list here, we have the $548,731 on, are they getting drunk?
Yes, as you can see here, it's very important that we study the way that the crack is coming out of the pants in these situations. If we can't figure out how to lick that problem, and I don't mean literally, then we're going to have a serious issue. I think $548,000 to solve that is a very important and vital use of the NIH funding.
So what else do we have here? Because I see we sent $90 million to China. We have $15 million to study fat lesbians, $666,000 to help. What is this? I love the graphics.
Well, first of all, I want to go back to the fat lesbians for a second.
I mean, wait, let's be PC. We spent, hang on, let me look at my official facts. $15 million to study why lesbians are fat.
Yeah, well, look, when's the last time you went to the beach?
It's been a couple years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed the epidemic of fat lesbians at the beach, overweight lesbians at the beach.
Lesbian obesity.
But it's a serious problem. You can laugh if you want, but this is a serious problem, and it needs to be dealt with. Nobody wants to go to the beach and see overweight people wearing thongs, and this has been a pervasive problem.
So what is the next? We've $170,000 that we spent to study rocking robins, birds. What the hell does this even have to do with the NIH?
Well, chickens, if you eat raw...
Oh, wait, these are quails. This is the thing this is the quail study. Okay, so this is studying quail sexual habits and cocaine and all of that.
If you think about it, and I need you to think hard about this, because I'm really trying to do some gymnastics here to make this work out. But poultry and bird and things like that, that can cause bird flu.
Oh,
swine flu,
let's look at
things
the
like
next
that.
one. Let's look at the next one. I feel that you're trying to justify this for me. $17 million that was spent on, what is this?
Micro bicoils? I have no idea. But
you don't even know what the hell you're spending money on, fake Dr. Ben.
I'm a fake doctor, okay? It's not my job to understand necessarily what this box is.
We also spent $90 million to study hookers in China. $113,000.
By the way, that's $90 million to study hookers in China. I just want to make clear that, as you've seen down in South America, study is a very loose word.
So we spent $10 million as well. Pull up our next visual representation. Well, that's $484,000. We also spent $10 million is this correct on?
That's Big Bird.
What the hell's wrong with him? What is wrong with Big Bird in this picture? This is for a Sesame Street ripoff in Pakistan.
No, President Obama promised that as part of his re-election, he was going to save Big Bird, okay? I think this is just an example of him coming through on his campaign promises, and I really don't think you should hold that against him.
But I don't. Why are we funding Pakistan Sesame Street? Time Magazine wrote about this. We had been funding $10 million, the NIH, to this weird, bizarre, like, puppet thing.
Well, if you look at America,
and you know what? They talked about the Great Satan, by the way, in this cartoon, in the puppet show. Excuse me. They talked about the Great Satan, like, oh, this is let's go bomb people. So.
Well, look, in America, we've had Sesame Street for a while, and we tend to not go blow people up. I think it's a good use of our money to make sure that they have Sesame Street so they don't blow people up. I think that's reasonable. And I think that you're being a little hard on the NIH.
I'm not. $15 million. This CNS News, sorry, $1.5 million. Thank you. Okay, and that was the lesbian obesity. It was my correction. Only $1.5 million of our dollars. And we were studying as to why.
That's not nearly enough, by the way.
Why lesbians are more obese than gay males. Isn't that a little bit sexist? What is it saying, that gay men can't be as fat as lesbians?
I think that everybody would agree that gay women need to be thinner than gay men. I don't even understand your question.
But so all of this took precedence over
Look, do you want to live in a world where people might die of Ebola in Africa, or in a world where people might see fat women at the beach?
Well,
I think that everybody knows the answer to this question.
But fake Dr. Ben, bleeding out of my eyes or fat lesbians? I mean,
Yes.
it's kind of an easy choice.
Well, actually, you usually bleed out of your eyes when you see fat lesbians. So the point is, if you can get rid of one of those two things, that's great. If you can get rid of both of them, even better.
Wow, fake Dr. Ben, illuminating presentation. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's the NIH. It's evident. Yeah, thank you, fake Dr. Ben. When we